Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin and for today's video we are going to be doing my January wrap-up. So in the month of January I managed to read 6 books, which is okay for me. It's not tons, but it's definitely on the lower side, but it's not the least I've ever read in a month for sure. Quality-wise, this month was amazing. I don't know that I had anything below 3 stars. And even the one that I did give 3 stars, it was like a 3.75. It was a really great reading month and I'm really excited to talk to you about all of the books. So let's get started. The first book that I read this month was In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle, or Surley. I don't know how you pronounce her last name. I apologize. I read this because I had seen so many mixed reviews, and for whatever reason, when I was watching people's worst books of the year videos, I decided to pick some of them and read them to see what I thought for myself. And I might do like a whole video talking about that, but this was one of those because Chandler Ainsley said that this was one of her worst books of the entire year, but the plot really intrigued me, so I figured I would give it a try for myself. Plus, she said that if you like tearjerkers, you might like that, and I was in the mood for a sad read, so I gave this a go. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I freaking loved it, and I've forgotten the characters' names at this point, but I still remember the plot really well, and this book actually made me cry, which is kind of difficult to do. I don't do that for a lot of books, but this one succeeded in that, and I love it for that. It wasn't a perfect book by any means. I just wasn't super invested in everything. But basically what this is about is we're following our main character. Like I said, I don't remember her name. And one night she goes to sleep, she's like taking a nap, and she has this kind of premonition of what's going to happen down the line where she's going to be engaged to this new guy even though she has a fiance. She's going to be living in this apartment and just so many things are going to be different. She doesn't understand what this dream means because she had just gotten engaged to her long-term boyfriend and now fiance, and we're following through the next 5 years of her life where everything takes place. And she meets this new man and she does everything in her power to stop it. Her best friend plays a really big role in the story, in that the guy that our main character had a dream about that she was engaged to is now her best friend's boyfriend. So lots of things are happening. Our main character is very, very confused. And I don't really want to say more than that. I don't want to give it away. This is like really, really sad. And I didn't care so much for like the romance plot of it. That didn't matter to me. The thing that I loved so much about this book was the relationship between our main character and her best friend. That was the part that made me cry near the end of the book. It was just really, loved it so much. 4.5 out of 5 stars. I believe there are some content warnings for this book, so I'm gonna have all of the links to Goodreads so you can check them out. One of them is kind of a spoiler, so that's why I'm not mentioning it, just in case some people don't want to know anything about this book, but I thoroughly enjoyed it even though it's gotten pretty mixed reviews. The next book that I read in the month of January was one of my most anticipated releases, and that was Across the Green Grass Fields by Seanan McGuire. So this is the 6th book in the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire, one of my all-time favorite series. Seanan McGuire might be my all-time favorite author. But basically what happens in this series is there are a bunch of kids who find random doorways one way or another, and those doorways transport them into worlds that better suit them. So they might not be kinder in any way, but they make more sense to them and they feel a lot more comforting being in them. Sometimes these kids return like back to our world, back to their original reality, and they grieve this world that so many people don't think even exists and that they made up in their head, but they grieve the relationships that they made in that world and the world that made so much sense to them, and being back in Earth, it doesn't, they feel very displaced. So a lot of them are sent to Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children. At Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children, there are a bunch of other kids just like them, and they have therapy groups and they can relate on a lot of different levels. So like I said, this is the 6th book, and we are following Reagan, who is an intersex main character. So the book starts off with Reagan, and you see a little bit of her dynamic with her friends in like our world and our reality. She finds out that she is intersex and decides to share that with one of her friends at school, and she's in 5th grade. So kids are really, really mean, and everybody's developing and whatever at their own paces. But Reagan decides to share this information, and her best friend, who is not that good of a person, decides to tell everyone and says that Reagan is a boy and bullies her so badly, and it's horrible. And so Reagan runs away from school because she's mortified and feels so badly about herself, and that's when she finds her door into a world full of centaurs and other horse-like creatures, which Reagan absolutely loves. Some of my favorite things about this book were the commentary on what makes a girl and what makes people people. It focuses a lot on gender identity and being who you want to be despite what anybody else might think or have to say about it. I loved that so much about this book. Something that I think Shauna McGuire does so well is commenting on really important issues, and like I said, in this one it was very much gender identity. I freaking loved this book. 5 out of 5 stars, just like pretty much every other book in this series, and I'm very happy that I read it. The next book is another one that I don't have with me, but my friend let me borrow it, and that was Light Filters In by Caroline Kaufman. This is a poetry collection that I think I ended up giving 3.75 or 3.5 out of 5 stars. I don't remember exactly. I've really been in a poetry mood, which you will see in a second. This was a modern poetry collection that I thoroughly enjoyed. I didn't like love every single poem, and I think that the writing style definitely has potential to grow. It's not flawless by any means, but it's like mentioned multiple times that she was 16 to 18 when she wrote this book, and so for 16 to 18 that's like super impressive. It's impressive regardless, but I think this is a great starting point, and I'm excited to read more from this author in the future. The next one is probably going to make it onto my favorite books of the year list, and that is The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. This came out in 2016, and I never read it despite all of the hype, because something that was really off-putting to me for whatever reason was the fact that our main character Alex was so angry. I didn't fully understand teenage angst even as a teenager, but I knew that this book dealt with heavy subject matters such as rape, sexual assault, being drugged, death, among other things. There's a decent amount of violence in this book, but we're basically following our main character Alex, whose sister has died. She was raped and murdered, and Alex knows who did it, even though the person is still like on the loose, and she's killed him, which I don't think is a spoiler, because the very first line in this book is, "This is how I kill someone." So throughout this book we're kind of following Alex and a few of her friends that she meets and makes, or I think like her senior year or something like that, and it's just very well done. This was a really impactful read. I, again, really liked all of the commentary. I really liked the writing style of this one. It was such a quick read. It was definitely hard to read at points, but I loved Alex as a main character, and this was a 5 out of 5 star read, and I'm definitely going to be rereading it and annotating it in the future because I listened to this on audiobook. So I'm obsessed with this book, just like everybody else was when they first read it, and I don't know, I shouldn't take so long to read books that have a decent amount of hype, because typically they have hype for a reason, and this was no exception. Like I said, we're getting into the part where I've been liking poetry lately. So the next book that I read in the month of January is Poems for the End of the World by Katie Wismer. I love Katie Wismer's writing. I have read both of her poetry collections, and I intend to read her novels, hopefully this year. This is her second poetry collection, and I gave it 4.75 out of 5 stars. It was a reread for me, and I loved it. I got to annotate it because the first time that I read it on ebook, and so it was really nice to physically read it, and I loved it. I don't relate to all of the poems in this one as much as I do her first collection, but I still think this is wonderful, and I cannot wait for her third collection to come out. I hope it comes out this year because it's just gonna be so good. The last book that I read in the month of January, I almost said February again, was Shine Your Icy Crown by Amanda Lovelace. This is the second book in, I don't remember what this series is called. This is the second book in You Are Your Own Fairy Tale series. The first one was Break Your Glass Slippers. I thoroughly enjoy Amanda Lovelace's poetry. I gave this one 3.75 out of 5 stars. Again, I didn't love everything in this, but there were definitely a few that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I also loved all of the artwork throughout. I think it's just so beautiful, and I cannot wait for her third one. I love that this collection is centered around fairy tales. I love how creative she's getting with it, and I definitely loved a decent amount of these poems, even though I didn't love all of them. Those were the 6 books that I read in the month of January. I hope that you all had a wonderful reading month. Let me know what your favorite book that you read this month was in the comments below if you want to chat, or just tell me anything. I seriously love talking to you guys. If you want to see more of my face and more of my videos, you can subscribe, but that's up to you. I hope that you're doing well, reading, mentally, and otherwise, and I really hope to see you all in my next video. Bye, guys.